Every time when I started working with law firms, I thought this is the hardest boss to crack because they're very, very difficult to, give advice to. So, Jeremy, you've proven that what used to take law firms 3 weeks and probably 20,000 US dollar in billable hours.
That are brand new and unsure, they don't understand enough to know how powerful it is or what points are to be fought against or pushed against and which ones are just kind of nice to haves.
To this point, obviously, a lot of people do not know, right? And I honestly, I have been talking to a lot of lawyers lately, and I have felt that many law firms still are very, very far behind. Some of the lawyers do not even have websites.
How can I make your life easier? How can I make your investment into my opportunity smooth, quality, safe in a platform? Because if you don't use that, the flows are so manual and they're so difficult and they're so frustrating. And I can go through the experiences of me doing them manually.
Most people think of law as a service you buy by the hour. My guest today, Jeremy Neilson, thinks of it as an engine you build for scale. So Jeremy is a co-founder of Sally and a former CEO of Shore, where he pioneered the infrastructure that allows venture capitalists and angel investors to launch SPVs at a fraction of traditional cost and time. So before we get into this topic, welcome to the show, Jeremy. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Right. So, Jeremy, for a lot of people like me, SPV is a very new term. Could you please explain what exactly SPV means and what it does?
Sure. So SPV is an acronym for Special Purpose Vehicle. And so kind of to unpack that, when you're investing into private assets, so there's public assets on the stock market and stuff, and then everything else is considered private assets. And there's kind of two ways to approach an investment into a private asset. That's called going direct, which typically means you go into your pocket and pull out some money and you talk to the sponsor or the CEO and you put money into the opportunity or the company and you're listed on the cap table. The other way is if you're to aggregate money together. That would be you and friends, you and family, you and networks, you and a community, you and your investors. If you aggregate them together into a pool, then you're going to need a vehicle. You're going to have to put them into a special purpose vehicle, aggregate the money in order to invest. And so this vehicle is typically an LLC or an LP. And typically it's a Delaware. So I'm just going to kind of go with that throughout this conversation. So you set up a Delaware LLC. That's your vehicle. And why did you set up this LLC? Why are you using this LLC? It's for a special purpose. And that single or very specific purpose is to invest into the startup or to this opportunity that you have found that is a private asset. So that's what it really is. It's setting up a Delaware LLC. It's pooling money for this special or specific purpose in order to make an investment.
Right. So let's suppose I file incorporation in Delaware. How is it different? When is there a special way we can apply for an SPV, or it's just that we can do it on our own?
Yeah, you can do it on your own, and there isn't really anything special. There's really no code. There's no SPV anything. It's a traditional Delaware LLC or LP. And those get set up every single day. And, typically, and I like to use, community business like a nail salon or a gas station or a restaurant. Every day people go and they apply for an LLC. It's the exact same paperwork. An SPV and a nail salon fill out the exact same paperwork. The difference here is back to that special purpose, right? So an SPV, we're just doing this one little thing. It's quiet, it's dormant, it's a holding company, where a nail salon is going to have rent and salaries and maybe health care and all that other stuff, right? So there is no difference on the approach between those two. It's just after you fill out the paperwork, file, and get it set up, then the paths divert, which is what am I using this for and how am I going to move forward. And so, yeah, you just do the same filing that you would in any other use case for an LLC.
Right. So for, let's suppose we talk about law firms. So people who have started their law firms, which category of law firms would require this kind of service?
So the law firms that would use or do SPVs would be those around business law, investment, securities. If you got really specific, funds, so traditional venture funds or structured vehicles or syndications. But typically the path is you cover in securities, you're in investments, you're with business, you're with investors, you're with CEOs. And then pretty soon you start to have these conversations around, I need a special purpose vehicle or I need a fund. And that's typically the path that a law firm or a lawyer would end up taking, getting into the practice of law around special purpose vehicles or funds.
Right. So if I can do it on my own, why do I need you or Sally for a special purpose vehicle?
Yeah, great question. So setting up the entity is maybe the easiest part. So a special purpose vehicle is all involved. So I'm going to go back to the example of nail salon, hair salon, gas station, restaurant, something like that. So you launch that business and you now need, let's say, an HR assistance, be it payroll. Maybe you need QuickBooks. Maybe you need someone to help with taxes. Maybe you need someone to help with construction. All these different things, right? That you need some booking, some scheduling software. Well, SPVs are no different. So you set up your entity, and now you need a bank account. And now you need legal documents to be signed by all the investors. Now you need some sort of onboarding flow. Now you're going to need to do taxes. You're going to need to do security filings. There's going to be distributions, membership transfers, corporate actions. So I've kind of broken them up into 19 different tasks that are involved in the life of an SPV, and setting up that LLC is one. Step one, task one, and then there's 18 more to do. And so Sally is software that basically automates those other 18 steps. Also can automate the 19th or that first step as well. So it has all those features and functions that then make life much, much easier. If a law firm was to, and I do have those that I speak to and assist and work with, if a law firm was to say, I would like to help my customers, my clients, do SPVs, they come to me, they want my help, they can use the software where they then bill for their time while they use the software. And it just makes their lives easier. It makes the flow easier. It makes the experience better for everybody involved.
Right. Now, every time when I started working with law firms, I thought this is the hardest boss to crack because they're very, very difficult to, give advice to. So, Jeremy, you've proven that what used to take law firms 3 weeks and probably $20,000 in billable hours can now be done via Sally in minutes for a fraction of the price. So, like I said, as someone who helps law firms automate their own workflows, I see a lot of resistance to this kind of shift, right? So do you think law firms that refuse to productize their repeatable workflows like SPV creation or intake are essentially facing an existential threat, specifically when AI is here?
Yeah, it's a good conversation piece. It's a good question. I do believe that law firms continue to add tons of value. And I see that every single day as I talk to customers and clients, lawyers and law firms. They have knowledge that a lot of other people don't. And there's a lot of comfort in talking to an attorney or working with a law firm that knows what they're doing and what they're saying and have those experiences. It really gives you that peace, right? And so that's not going to go away. That's always going to kind of be there. But I do think with AI, with software and others, as people learn that there are better or easier or smoother ways to do things, they become also extremely interested in that. When it comes to SPVs or funds, there is different parties involved. The attorney plays a role, and they're very important. But the investor experience is perhaps the most important. And why is that? Is because you don't have a fund and you don't have an SPV unless you have your investors. For a client of a law firm that is raising money for an SPV, their client is the investor. And if you can provide to them a great experience for their investor, their client, they're interested in that. And the more they do, the more interactions they have, the more money they raise, the more important that becomes. And it is a administrative and ongoing growing burden the more they do. And so to have software, to have platforms, to have functionality flows that make their lives easier, the more they're going to do, which means the more they're going to come to that attorney, the more they're going to trust that attorney that can provide them with systems, flows, and software that can make their life easier and make their investor experience more powerful. So an attorney that perhaps thinks about billable hours, which is great, it's how it's built. But at times, if you can sit back and say, well, if I do X or provide Y, those billable hours can be higher for a longer period of time. What's great about clients that do SPVs or funds is they're going to do lots of them, and they're going to keep coming back, and they're going to want to have more advice or more assistance. And if you have a software that they're using, then they're going to be even more locked in with you, with that software, with that experience that then gives them and their investors a better experience that they really, really crave.
Right. So obviously there's a pressure from the clients, investors as well. But then when you built Shore, right, and now Sally, you weren't just building the software. You're building a legal infrastructure. And in my work, I find that most law firms have software like Clio or any other CRM, Practice Panther, but they do not have any infrastructure within that, right? So the data connected to intake or K1s. From your experience, scaling thousands of SPVs, what is one data break that most firms ignore until it's too late to scale?
One data break. There's many. I'm not sure I could really go with one. So the kind of the history about this for myself is I'm a lawyer as well. I went to law school, California licensed attorney, and when we built the process for Assure, these SPVs, it was really taking a legal approach to it and tearing it down to the bare bones, if you will. What I mean by that is, venture funds were very established at the time. It's about 15 years ago, and we just took a venture fund and we just stripped it down. Like, what do we need here? What steps are required, regulatorily, document-wise, flows, all of that stuff. So we did everything manually for the first many, many years before we started to build technology. And that was extremely, extremely valuable for us to do things manually so that we then knew what to do next. And I think attorneys, I do believe that they're very good at doing things manually. That's where they've been trained. And I think there's some mistrust or misunderstanding of, what's in this software. Will it do all the things I need? Can I give my customer the customization and the service that I want? And when software provides that, then they tend to be more willing to adopt. If a software requires narrow paths, restrictions, their way only, that tends to cause problems. And so I would say that understanding I'm not sure how quite to say this, but just when it comes to SPVs, when it comes to funds, When I work with attorneys that know it well, they've been doing it for a long time, we don't have any problems. They love the software. They get it because it has 80-90% of the flows and the functionality. Those that are brand new and unsure, they don't understand enough to know how powerful it is or what points are to be fought against or pushed against and which ones are just kind of nice to haves. And so I would say the largest issue that I would say that law firms run into or lawyers run into is just not knowing enough yet. Like they're just kind of new. They're kind of green a little bit. They're just getting started in understanding the securities, the flows, the investor, the parties, the players, the pressures. And that's really where things break, is just not knowing enough yet.
To this point, obviously, a lot of people do not know, right? And I honestly, I have been talking to a lot of lawyers lately, and I have felt that many law firms still are very, very far behind. Some of the lawyers do not even have websites, which is like very, very, sad in today's day and age. So how are you making it easy for lawyers who do not understand Sally and what it offers, so that they can incorporate Sally into their, workflows and how they can, get into it and get the benefits out of it?
Yeah. So over the years, I've done a lot of education, training. So I have a YouTube channel called All Things SPVs. I'm talking through all aspects of SPVs down to the step-by-step manual process. I have documents I give away for free. The Sally system's a white labeled system. I'll set up for any attorney their own tenant that they can then play with, they can experience, they can click all the buttons and generate all the documents and go through all the flows. Happy to train and educate. I've got videos. So just trying to give the users, the clients, the customers, the attorneys, as much touch points and experience so that they can then feel safe, that they can feel like, okay, I get it, I understand it, I've touched everything, or I've generated everything, I've read everything. And I think that's really the only way to do it, because SPVs are understandable, but they're a little complex. At least the first couple times you go through it, when you start digging in, it's like anything. There's a learning curve there. It can feel a little steep at times. But after a few iterations, it really starts to become much more understandable and much easier. And so my approach is to just give access, to give free, to provide education, and so that's the approach I've taken.
Right. So we'll come back to this again about how you've been providing value and how it can help attorneys who are not providing value right now. But Sally, so for my listeners, I just want to tell you, Sally offers a white-labeled SPV engine for law firms. This is a game changer because it allows a law firm to act like a tech company. Now, for the attorneys who are listening right now and afraid of losing human touch to automation, and there are a lot of people who do, how do you argue that white label automated platforms actually increases the client's trust in a lawyer?
I have found, been doing this for a long time, that when a solid quality software is used, more trust is given. It may sound counterintuitive, but on the investor side, we mentioned this earlier, so when the law firm's customer has their customers, which are the investors, those investors really give a lot more respect and a lot more trust to their client, which is the organizer of these SPVs, when they bring a quality software, because they're thinking about them. How can I make your life easier? How can I make your investment into my opportunity smooth, quality, safe, in a platform? Because if you don't use that, the flows are so manual and they're so difficult and they're so frustrating. And I can go through the experiences of me doing them manually, of doing DocuSigns and the frustration that these investors go through of not understanding where do I go and what do I fill out and which box do I click, and the accreditation questions and all of that stuff. So it's been my experience that when you bring a quality product that provides great features and services, the respect is given. Your clients, I would say to attorneys and law firms, your client expects you to know what's out there. You're the expert, right? Go pick a great solution, and then bring it to me, because I don't want to have to go do all the due diligence and dig around and find it, and I don't know what the law, the legal aspects of it. I don't know what the document should say. I don't know if side letters should be in there or not. I don't know. I want you to know, right? So if you say, yeah, I've done this, I use this software, it's really good. You're like, oh, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. And then they obviously want you to know how to use it and whatnot. And one of the great things about Sally is it does have tons of automation, but it also has tons of, I call them self-governing or do-it-yourself functions and features, meaning if the automation doesn't work or if you don't like the automation, you don't have to use it. You can always insert yourself in any point and get involved more, or you can just let the system run and have it do it for you. So lots of features and functions. And I am, like I said, I am a lawyer. I think like a lawyer. Sometimes that hurts me. Sometimes that really helps me. The hurting part is sometimes you just really what would happen if someone sued, or what would happen if this question came up, or if I was in court, what would I need? And so sometimes those rabbit holes go deep, and that's not necessarily great to do in all cases. But on the flip side, it can be very helpful as well. As law firms come, they will see that kind of legal mind throughout the system. So I'm sensitive to lawyers and law firms, and they do need to insert themselves, and they do need to step here, and they do need to read that, and all of those doors are available in the Sally software.
Right. So, since you're dealing with high net worth investors, right? So they have sensitive K1 tax data and massive capital calls. So when you look at the security, right, that should be the most important thing. Probably it has to be around the whole product. So when I'm connecting SaaS tools for law firms, the biggest bottleneck is always secure data handoff, right? So how has Sally solved the problem that you just discussed earlier? The security part versus the friction problem, where you need obviously like a bank grade secure system, but how is it making it one click simple for an investor?
Yeah, well, agreed. Security is very important. Safety is very important. Sally's a standalone system. It doesn't need to be integrated with others. So it's a white labeled system that looks and stands on its own. It can even have a custom URL, but it's not necessarily tapping in or APIing into a law firm's database or their documents. And so we can push, they can download, but we don't have to integrate, if you will. The other, so then we use AWS, and we use the various modern technology. And what's great about Sally is it's newer. So we're not using old systems that have old issues with them. So we're using the latest and the greatest and the newest, and that's also extremely helpful and beneficial. We also provide a lot of self-serve or permission-based optionalities and rules. So the law firm gets a chance to then share or not share, or limit or remove those that are working on something but then don't work on it. So they also have a lot of power to run their own policies and secure procedures that they have in their firm.
Right. So that's a great thing, because obviously there has to be one of the core features that the software must have. But we're moving towards a world where legal services are kind of embedded directly into transactions like SPV. So suppose if you were a managing partner of mid-sized business law firm today, knowing what you know about Sally's efficiency, would you even hire a fund admin department, or would you hire an automation engineer to manage a platform?
You would not need to hire an admin team. Somebody at the law firm right now would be more than capable of clicking buttons and using the system. So specialized back office admin team members are not necessary. They're great. They learn it or know it or pick it up as quicker than most. But no, I would not be going after expensive admin individuals. And you don't need an engineer either. Like, the software works, you're not coding. You just need people that would understand when you click this button or how this feature works, or if you see this alert, these are the steps that you need to take. And so paralegals, legal assistants, others would be more than capable of participating or using the software.
Right. So, Sally, Jeremy, we are going to move towards a little bit, we're going to digress a bit towards a different topic now. Since you've been an attorney yourself, you've been into the trenches and you've moved towards the tech side now. I just want to understand in today's world, right? So a lot of new attorneys are coming out, they're passing their bar exams. Do you think degrees today really matter? And do you think when you're a freshman, you're just starting, do you think that university's degree provide the same value that you can, get through AI today?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm going to give my answer that I've given many times around the value of a degree. And this comes from hiring perhaps over 1,000 people. My prior company, we did not have the technology. We hired lots of admins. We hired attorneys, CPAs, programmers, tax professionals, undergrads, analysts, customer success, marketing, accounting. I mean, it's complete business, right? Like every type of hire that you could imagine, we had that team member. And over the years of hiring over 1,000 people and working with these teams, individuals that went to a 4-year degree, earned a 4-year degree, had a different mindset and skill set than those that did not. So I don't care. What I learned is it doesn't matter what degree you got. English, law, programming, IT, doesn't matter. The fact that you went through the program, the fact that you went to class, that you did homework, that you studied for tests, that you did projects, that you worked with teams, that you dealt with disappointment, that you worked hard to accomplish, get a great grade, to work through a major, and to work at something at a high level, and to dig deep on topics and subjects. The fact that you went through that experience makes you a certain type of person that as you get into the workforce, you then work well with teams, you work well with managers, you work well on projects, you can think critically, you can overcome frustrations. And not saying this is a rule across every single spectrum or across every single person, but in general, those that did not go to college did not have a expansive skill set or attitude about I can do this, I'm going to accomplish this. And so I don't know what AI does to kind of challenge that experience that I've had, but I have found that people that have gone to school have are better in the workforce. That's my experience. And those that went to additional school, CPAs and attorneys, have just that much more in skill set, in experience, in drive, and ability. And so perhaps it's something like, well, maybe I go in the military and would get that, or I do some other things and get that, and that's possible. But to speak to the question that you asked, I still think going to school and seeking out a degree is good for humans. Why? Just doing hard things, setting goals, accomplishing those things. So sitting in a bedroom and reading AI, I don't think you get that. I don't think that develops you as a employee, as a boss, as an entrepreneur, as an attorney. I do love that AI can help us get to answers quicker. I think we can learn more, but I don't think it replaces a experience of learning and of goal setting and accomplishments and disappointment and success. And so that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, that's what I believe as well, because going to university or a college doesn't really, you don't just study books. You meet people, you share ideas, you have a lot of exposure that builds that character that, you can provide value, whether you work as an employee or employer. So moving forward from here, suppose that in today's time, right, I recently learned that Baker McKenzie laid off like 3,000, 4,000 employees because they were they said they are planning to adopt AI. Now, you work in an automation company, right? For a person who's just gotten out of a college and he wants to work in a law firm, he has become a lawyer. Now, a college doesn't teach you everything. They don't teach you business of law. They don't teach you sales. They don't teach you marketing. Do you think if they do not work in a law firm, can they still be successful? Because obviously the gap is widening. And if law firms are not hiring new people, how will they transition into seniors?
Yeah. I think AI really plays a great role here. So let's say you want to go to a traditional large law firm and they're not really hiring. I believe with AI, with your education, with your law degree, with passing the bar, with AI, you get to have a confidant that you would need years ago, right? So years ago, I came out of law school. You're just like, I don't know much. I would love to have a mentor. I'd love to go to a law firm. I'd love to be trained, and then I can get my confidence under me, and then I can make a new decision. If that's not available, I believe AI is a great companion to assist. It gives you that extra confidence to launch your own or do your own thing. And there's lots of niches. SPVs are one of them. I don't have a great number here, but I just kind of off the top of my head, there's not that many attorneys that understand funds, period. It's venture funds, hedge funds. There's probably less than 100 in America. And SPVs are even less than that. So this is just my world, right? There's hundreds of other nuances and niches throughout the business and legal world out there. And AI gives you that confidence, that friend, if you will, to supplement your experience and your intuition. I use it all the time. And so I have stuff, I know stuff, right? You're like, I know this, but I'm just going to go to AI and do a double check. And you type in your question, it comes back, you're like, yep, that was what I thought. And it just kind of gives you that little extra boost. I love it. And so I think the AI thing is not about not going to college, but taking that college degree, that training, and then augmenting that and kind of giving you a little bit of a superpower going forward. And, big law firms are great in many ways. They pay you a lot of money, but they also expect a lot from you. And if you can get that experience, great. But I think that as the world moves forward and because of AI, there's going to be so many more opportunities to do your own thing and again, you mentioned like marketing or sell, like AI. Like I talk to it all the time about, here's what I'm thinking. This is what I thought. I even go be like, hey, tell me all about this topic. And because of my experiences, it just augments already what I have. And it's just been so helpful for me to grow Sally faster and be that little extra person on the team that is so powerful for anything that I'm trying to do.
So, Jeremy, when you started as an attorney, did you start as an employee and then transitioned into being a founder and a business owner?
So when I went to law school, I had the dream of doing JD MBA because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I wanted to have this toolkit. Right? I wanted to have enough tools in my toolbox that I could really go anywhere and do anything. I'm not good at math, so I did not do well on my GMAT, and so I did not get into the MBA program. I got into the law schools, Wake Forest Law School, and did fine, but I did not find myself really drawn to the traditional legal path, going to a law firm, working daily for clients that come in and hire you. So I did work at some law firms. As I graduated, it was 2001, so this was the dot-com bust. They had overhired, so maybe like the AI thingy right now. You talked about some layoffs. Layoffs were going on like crazy. The law firms did not want the attorneys they had, let alone any of these new junior kids coming out of college. So I couldn't get it. I could not get a job anywhere. I had a binder of couple inch thick of rejection letters, at the house, and it was a tough time. I did work for some sole proprietors, get some hours in there. Ultimately, my father had pity on me. He probably saw I'm going to end up funding this kid's apartment so I can either have him work for my company and do some labor, or I'm just going to be giving him money. So he had pity on me, and he hired me. It was an accounting firm. And I eventually just went back and got my MBA. And so I got my MBA and was hired by the state of Utah to launch their economic development program called the Utah Fund of Funds. And when I went to law school, I knew that it would be extremely valuable to me, but I didn't know when or how I would cash in on it. But that very first job, that Utah Fund of Funds job, I cashed in on that law degree in a big way. Like, it was the reason I got the job. It's the reason I was successful. And then Assure, the whole reason Assure is because I had my law degree. Sally is just an extension of that. So my law degree has just been through my entire career and has been everything to me. So, but I never did work at a law firm in like a traditional sense, 9 to 5 every day. I mean, I did internships, I did one-offs here and there, but from the very beginning, I was not somebody that wanted that traditional law experience, and I wanted to build things, and so that's the path I took.
Right. The reason I asked you this question because there was one conversation with another attorney who worked for like 12 years in AM law, and he told me that in those 12 years he did not learn a thing about business of law. He just learned how to complete his billable hours. He said that, and he said, I quit and then I started my own law firm. So what is your perspective on it? Can somebody who has never ever worked anywhere in a traditional law firm, can they start and make their law firm successful?
Absolutely. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I am an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship. I would say that it's more of an entrepreneur question than like a lawyer or law school or anything like that. If you have the constitution, the stomach for entrepreneurship, absolutely. I'm here to be a witness as an example of someone who went to law school, who's used that law degree, and has launched multiple businesses and has found success in those endeavors. Entrepreneurship is very different than clocking in and figuring out your billable hours, but it's so much more rewarding. But you have to be. Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like it's all roses and rainbows. It's very much a difficult path. When I was running Assure, the legal side of things was constantly coming up around like documents and our clients needing an attorney or law firm, and there just weren't that many attorneys out there that knew the SPV space. So I grabbed an attorney at the company and just said, "Would you ever think about doing a law firm?" He's like, "Yeah, I would." And I'm like, "I'm going to launch one. Do you want to run it?" So I've launched. That was my first law firm. I've launched two, another one since then. And it's not that hard. To launch a law firm is extremely easy. You basically do an LLC. You make sure you've got, with the bar and IOTA account, and then you really hang out your shingle. And it's really about you and your expertise and the time you put in. There's tons of software programs out there that can help you with this, that, or the other thing. But at the end of the day, it's really about just putting yourself out there, getting the word out. And that sales and marketing thing is the hardest part. And over time, like my brother who's an attorney says, work begets work. You get your first client, and then you're going to get two more, and you're going to get two more after that, and you're going to get 10. Pretty soon, your wife's going to be like, "Why do you work so much?" And you're saying, "I don't know. It just, it worked." But yeah, it's definitely doable.
Yeah. Like you said, the hardest part is sales and marketing, right? So you are a founder, and a lot of founders I've talked to, especially who have, founded a law firm, they detest sales, right? They don't understand how they can, put themselves in the front. What is one advice for a law founder who's just starting? Should they invest in an office where clients can come in and they say, "Wow, what an office this is," right? Or should they invest in sales and marketing in the start?
I say sales and marketing. One advice that people give to founders is start sales and marketing long before you think you should. And that's been an experience I had with Sally, which was I don't want to start until the software is to the point that I think it needs to be. And I think that was a mistake. And the reason that's a mistake is because it takes time for even that first person to say, "Let me see a demo," right? And so you start on day one, it's going to be 60, 90, 120, 180 days before anybody even says, "Sure, let's talk." And maybe it's day two, right? But for the most part, there's this flywheel that's just really slow to get started. And so sales and marketing takes much longer than you want it to. But once it gets going, it can be an incredible engine that you never thought was possible. And so you don't need, in today's time, right, you don't need a fancy office. You've got Zoom, video conferencing, everybody's doing it, and you can always meet somebody at their office or at a coffee shop or something like that. And if you get to that point, great, get a great office. But no, I would not. And you want to be smart with your money because it can take longer than you want. You don't want to run out of money. And so, yes, I do not support getting an office early.
Yeah, that's the way to go. And then you talked about the one part where building a whole product and then not knowing if the market needs it or not, because in your head it might be the correct thing, but the market might be thinking completely differently. So how did you initially, when you started Sally, what was the USP you were working on, And how did you make sure that it was market fit and people could get what you're offering?
Well, because I had done it before with Assure. So Assure was a special purpose vehicle service provider, all manual, then a little bit of tech, and then a little bit of more tech, and a little bit of more tech. Because of that, I had a pretty good sense. But you're right. I did not know for sure. Plenty of scary moments of like, maybe I'm doing this for no reason. No one's going to want it. So there is a part that when you're an entrepreneur, you have to go with your gut. You'll never know all the answers. And you know, a great entrepreneur in the state of Utah, Josh James, he did Omniture and Domo. He had a quote that said something like, if you obtain, you know, like 70% of the facts, you're too late or you're too slow. Meaning, if you kind of wait and gather and then you jump and you get 70-80% confidence, you've waited too long. You've spent too much time on it. And so how did I know? I didn't, but I was very, very confident because I had done the SPV thing before. I knew what the customers were asking us to do. I knew what a great software program would mean for workflows and team size and speed and experience. And so for me, it was I'm just going to build it and trust my gut. And it's been slow at some level. I mean, it's slower than you want. That's how I should describe it. It's been slower than I want. Right? You have these dreams of like, if you build it, they will come, right? And they just all flock to you. And sometimes that happens, but usually not. It's usually a very measured process. And sometimes that's really good. And I'll say from Assure, we did build it and they came in droves and we fell down a lot. If it comes too fast, you'll break. And then your clients get upset. And so there is a gift of measured success. Even though you want it faster, too much speed can also be its own kind of enemy and problem for you. And so I've gotten great reviews. Customers love it, so things are feeling great. But I just went for it.
Yeah, that's great. So from here, you see, if let's suppose I have a tech firm, right, and I code stuff, and today I want to launch a legal tech product, right, like you have. How important it is that I get a co-founder who is an attorney and he knows a lot of people?
It's a good question. How important is it to have a co-founder that's an attorney? Well, I went the other way, so I don't code. I'm the attorney, and I absolutely needed somebody to code. On the flip side, I would think that it would be valuable and potentially detrimental. Let me explain both. Valuable in that they can really help you think through the mindset and the workflows of a law firm or an attorney, or how they work with clients, how the client wants to be, dealt with. So that type of on-the-ground experience is invaluable. But you could probably get that by interviewing people or just chatting with attorneys or showing attorneys an early beta version and getting feedback. The detriment could be that an attorney may slow you down and be like, no, right, regulatorily or legally, or I really think that, this could be a problem here, because attorneys many times are risk adverse, right? They've been taught and trained to be very protective, risk adverse, very conservative, and that's great. But if I had used, and I'll tell you an experience from Assure. We never hired an attorney that had years of experience at a law firm. And that is because they would come into our company and they would bring the law firm mindset of billable hours, value of time, different approach, conservative, speed was much slower. So we only hired recent college or law school graduates so that we could train them in our approach. And so the detrimental thing is an attorney could slow you down, scare you, kind of restrict being aggressive with approaches. So with my software, there's many times where I would just be like, let's jump 3 steps. Like doing it manual, or a law firm would go steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go from 1 to 4. Let's just cut these 2 out. Let's see what happens. Let's see what the customer says. Let's see what the attorneys say. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, this is great. I wish I would have thought of this, right? And so don't, an experienced attorney can add lots of value. They can also just bring kind of legacy mindsets. And if you're trying to grow, improve, innovate, legacy mindsets can be detrimental.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great advice, actually. So, Jeremy, my last question would be that when it comes to Sally and Jeremy, they're 2 different entities, right? Obviously, they're connected. But you're here today. You're having a podcast. What is more important, Sally being the brand or Jeremy being the brand?
What I want is Sally to be the brand. What I believe needs to be is for Jeremy to be the brand. And why is that? And that is because of the legal nature of SPVs. That when I talk to customers, they, 9 times out of 10, they are interested in Sally because of me. Why? Because I've done 9,000 SPVs. I've onboarded over 250,000 investors. I've helped raise through my different businesses over the years over $14 billion. So they know that I know my stuff. And if it was just software that says, hey, check this out, it's pretty, it does clicks and it does these things, that's nice. But the fact that I know what I'm doing gives them the comfort to even lean in, to try, to believe that the software is what I say it is. And then they know that they can talk to me if they have a question, if they don't know if they go left or right. And so in this case, in the Sally case, in the legal world case, for the most part, it's me that is the most important part of the combo.
That's right. So it has been a pleasure. And Jeremy, honestly, I feel like that SPVs, it's a very niche thing. And to understand it completely, we may have a lot of settings that it doesn't, one single R doesn't justify everything. So at the end, would you like to say anything that I might not have asked to my audience?
I think this has been a great conversation. I mentioned it through this conversation, my YouTube channel, All Things SPVs. If you want to kind of learn more, dig in, I start to dig in detail of different of those 19 tasks and some various pieces of that. Sally.co is my website, and happy to give demos or take phone calls with anybody that's interested in learning more about SPVs or the software or how it works. But I appreciate the time, and it's enjoyable to be here.
That's great. So if you're looking for moving from a traditional law firm to a tech-enabled law firm, please do contact Sally. He is a person with immense knowledge, and it was lovely having you. Thank you for coming to the show, Sally. Jeremy.
Thank you.